Good evening, everyone. Kalispera σας. I now call to order the regular session meeting of the Board of Commissioners of the City of Tarpon Springs on Monday, March 21st, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. Ms. Jacobs, roll call, please.
Mayor LaHousas?
Here.
Vice Mayor Carr? Here. Commissioner Terrapini?
Here.
Commissioner Donovan?
Here.
Commissioner Vaticiotis?
Here.
Tonight's invocation will be given by the City Attorney, following by the Pledge of Allegiance. Will you please stand?
We ask that you welcome into your arms the victims of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Comfort their families and all those who grieve for them. Help us in our fear and uncertainty, and bless us with knowledge that we are secure in your love. Strengthen all those who work for peace. Strengthen us in this time of need. Inspire us to acts of charity and generosity, and give us hope for a brighter future. In this we pray. Amen.
Thank you.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll begin our meeting tonight with a special presentation for the Ilida Sister City delegation. As you remember, on September 18th, we finalized the sister cities twinning between Ilida, Greece, and the city of Tarpon Springs. And now it's my honor to introduce to the BOC and to the people of Tarpon Springs the mayor of Ilida, Dr. Yannis Liberis, and his delegation. Mayor Liberis, καλώς ήρθατε. And if you please come to the podium, ελάτε στο βήμα σας παρακαλώ. Mayor Liberis, allow me to introduce to you our Board of Commissioners. Θα σας παρουσιάσω το Δημοτικό μας Συμβούλιο, αρχίζοντας από μένα το Δήμαρχο του Δημοτικού Συμβουλίου, ο οποίος έχει χρέη ως Πρόεδρος του Δημοτικού Συμβουλίου, ο Χρυσόστομος Αλαχούζος. Δίπλα μου, εδώ στα αριστερά μου, είναι ο Vice Mayor, ο Αντιδήμαρχος, Vice Mayor Carr, και έχουμε τρεις Δημοτικούς Συμβούλους. Ο Commissioner Terrapini, ο Δημοτικός Σύμβουλος Terrapini, εκεί κάτω είναι ο Commissioner Donovan και στα δεξιά σου είναι ο Commissioner Vaticiotis. Κύριε Δήμαρχε, σας παρακαλώ να please present your delegation. Κύριε Δήμαρχε, σας παρακαλώ να παρουσιάσετε την αντιπροσωπεία σας που ήρθε μαζί σας για την εδελφοποίηση.
Ευχαριστώ, κύριε Δήμαρχε. My name is John Limberis, Mayor of Ilida, in the town Αμαλιάδα. Ο αναπληρωτής μου δήμαρχος, ο κύριος Ανδρέας Παπαδάκος.
Deputy Mayor, Mr. Andreas Papadakos.
Ο Δημοτικός Σύμβουλος, ο κύριος Χαράλαμπος Ντάνασης.
The member of the City Council, Mr. Haralabos Danasis.
Η Γενική Γραμματέας του Δήμου, η κυρία Νικολέτα Κοκαλιάρη.
The General Secretary of the City Hall, Miss Niki Kokaliari.
Και οι σύμβουλοι επιστημονικοί συνεργάτες του Δήμου, Mr. Βασίλης Καψής και Mr. Ιωάννης Κουζούρης.
And with two special advisors of Mayor, Mr. Akis Kouzouris and me, Vasilis Kapsis.
Κύριε Δήμαρχε, κύριε Αντιδήμαρχε, κύριε Δημοτική Σύμβουλη, πρέπει να σας πω ότι είμαι 20 σχεδόν χρόνια δήμαρχος στην Ήλιδα.
He must say that he's about 20 years mayor in the city of Illida.
Στα 27 χρόνια, κύριε Δήμαρχε, κάναμε μία αδελφοποίηση με την πόλη του Tarpon Springs.
And this 20-year story, we did only one twinning ceremony only with the city of the Tarpon Springs.
Σας πω ότι είναι ιδιαίτερη χαρά και τιμή για μας που ήρθαμε σε αυτή τη μακρινή πόλη, στην άλλη πλευρά του ωκεανού, για να συναντήσουμε την ψυχή των Ελλήνων που έχουν έρθει εδώ 1, 2, 3 γενναίες πριν.
It's very big happiness and a big honor for us to come to the next side of the ocean and to a place that 1 and 2 and 3 generation of Greeks are here in this city.
Οι απόδημοι αυτοί Έλληνες, μαζί με Αμερικανούς πολίτες, διαπνέονται, διακατέχονται από τα ίδια ιδανικά που διακατέχονται και οι γηγενείς Έλληνες πίσω στην Ελλάδα και στο Δήμο το δικό μας. Τα ιδανικά της δημοκρατίας, της ειρήνης και της φιλίας των λαών.
All these Greeks in the American cities, they have the same thoughts about the democracy, what else, Mayor? Peace and all this of the twin and sister cities.
Κύριε Δήμαρχε, το πρωτόκολλο που υπογράψαμε πριν από 3 ημέρες για μας είναι παρακαταθήκη, είναι πίστη και είναι πεποίθηση πως θα το συνεχίσουμε ανεξαρτήτως αν θα είμαι εγώ δήμαρχος σε αυτή τη μικρή πόλη της Αμαλιάδας, ανεξαρτήτως αν θα υπάρχουν επόμενοι δήμαρχοι. Το ίδιο πιστεύουμε ότι θα γίνει και με την πόλη του Tarpon Springs και με τον αγαπητό μας μελλοντικό δήμαρχο, τον κύριο Κώστα Βελγεκιώτη.
Mr. Mayor, we believe that except Mayor will be or not Mr. Liberis means the next year's the city of Amaliada will continue what you're saying on this twinning protocol, and we hope they do the same with the new mayor of city of Tarpon Springs too.
Θέλω να σας πω ότι η περιοχή του Δήμου μας, της Ήλιδας, έχει το όνομά της από μια αρχαία πόλη της αρχαίας Ελλάδας, την αρχαία Ήλιδα.
The name of our city, Ήλιδα, Elis, has the name from the one ancient Greek city, ancient Ήλιδα.
Αυτή η αρχαία πόλη το 776 π.Χ. οργάνωσε τους αρχαίους Ολυμπιακούς Αγώνες.
This city, at the 7th century BC, organized the first Olympic Games.
Όλοι γνωρίζουμε τους Ολυμπιακούς Αγώνες. Θέλω να σας πω ότι ο όρος αθλητισμός και αθλητής δεν θα υπήρχε σήμερα στην παγκόσμια κοινότητα αν δεν υπήρχε αυτή η αρχαία πόλη που τον ξεκίνησε.
From this city and to the history later, the names of the athletic will be not be in the world if not this city start these Olympic Games.
Άρα σήμερα, κύριε Δήμαρχε, κύριε Αντιδήμαρχε και κύριοι Σύμβουλοι, σας μεταφέρουμε αυτές τις ιδέες του Ολυμπισμού, τις ιδέες της ειρήνης, τις ιδέες του αγώνα, του καλού αγώνα και τις ιδέες της νίκης για τη δημοκρατία.
So we transfer to you from our city all these ideas of Olympic Games, peace, and what else, Michael? I forget. The games and the victory.
Μαζί με αυτό, θεωρήσαμε υποχρέωσή μας, κύριε Δήμαρχε, να κάνουμε αυτή την αδελφοποίηση για να τιμήσουμε τους Έλληνες ομογενείς της Αμερικής, διότι στην πόλη μας, την πόλη της Αμαλιάδας, γεννήθηκε ο ιδρυτής του μεγαλύτερου εντύπου, της μεγαλύτερης εφημερίδας του απόδημου ελληνισμού, του εθνικού Κήρυκα, ο Πέτρος Στατάνης.
So we decided to do this twinning protocol with the city of Tampa Springs because, as the mayor said in the beginning, there's many Greeks here in these places, and because from our city it was the birthplace of Petros Statanis, the editor who started the newspaper National Herald.
Κύριε Δήμαρχε, κύριε Δημοτικού Σύμβουλοι, δεχτείτε τις ευχαριστίες μας, την ικανοποίησή μας και την υποχρέωσή μας να συνεχίσουμε αυτή την αδελφοποίηση, όπως είπα και στην προηγούμενη ομιλία μου. Θέλω να σας ευχαριστήσω για όλα όσα σας κάνατε και εσάς προσωπικά και πιστεύω ότι μια προσωπική φιλία που δημιουργήθηκε μεταξύ μας, τουλάχιστον για μένα, θα παραμείνει για όλη μου τη ζωή.
We would like to thank you very much for all this twinning the protocol, and we want to tell you that's a big honor for us, and we'll continue what we promised to do each other and for the next years. And we would like to, personal to you, Mr. Michael, to thank you very much for everything.
Σας ευχαριστώ πολύ.
Ευχαριστώ πολύ. Κύριε Δήμαρχε, μήπως θέλετε να μιλήσει κανένας από την αντιπροσωπεία σας, να καλέσετε κάποιον στο βήμα. Θέλετε κανένας σας να μιλήσετε? Όχι. Ευχαριστώ. Ευχαριστώ. It is Κύριε Δήμαρχε Λιμπέρη, now that we completed the twinning of our cities, we must begin the cooperation regarding to exchange, culture, education, economic development. And I'm sure the Mayor-elect Vaticiores will continue his support to our Sister City program, and he will continue to work with you to accomplish the goals that we have already set. Κύριε Δήμαρχε, τώρα που τελειοποιήσαμε την αδελφοποίησή μας στον πόλεό μας, πρέπει να αρχίσει μια καλή συνεργασία μεταξύ των δύο πόλεων μας για την ανταλλαγή παιδείας, πολιτισμού και για την ανάπτυξη της οικονομίας. Ο επόμενος δήμαρχος, ο κύριος Βατικιώρες, είμαι σίγουρος ότι θα συνεχίσει τη συνεργασία μεταξύ των δύο πόλεων μας, ούτως ώστε να πετύχουμε αυτούς τους στόχους τους οποίους έχουμε βάλει. Τώρα ήθελα να ρωτήσω τους συνάδελφους μου εδώ for their comments. Vice Mayor, do you want to comment?
Is that to me?
Hmm?
Was that to me?
Yeah.
That was me, right? Not to okay. All right, great. Hey, welcome to the city of Tarpon Springs. I know you've all been here for a week or so, and you're getting ready to take off tomorrow. I hope you've enjoyed your stay and have gotten to see a little bit of what Greece is here in Tarpon Springs.
Excuse me. Would you please go to the podium and explain what they're saying, if you don't mind? Sorry, go ahead.
You got to confirm what he's saying is correct, okay?
Right, I'll make sure of that.
Σας καλωσόρισε ο κύριος Αντιδήμαρχος σε όλη την αποστολή. Ήταν μεγάλη χαρά και για αυτόν αυτή η αδελφοποίηση και ελπίζει να περάσαμε καλά αυτές τις μέρες που είμαστε εδώ γνωρίζοντας ότι φεύγουμε αύριο.
Enjoyed meeting you at the parade yesterday and safe travels back to Greece. Thank you.
Να πάνε όλα καλά και να επιστρέψουμε με το καλό στην Ελλάδα.
Okay. Ο επόμενος ομιλητής θα είναι ο Δημοτικός Σύμβουλος, ο κύριος Τεραπιάνης.
I just also want to thank you for coming. I hope you enjoyed your stay over the last week that you've been here. And as the mayor said, that you've come on the next side of the pond to Tarpon Springs. So we appreciate you making the journey and also look forward to your reciprocation in the years to come. Thank you.
Θέλει και ο κύριος Δημοτικός Σύμβουλος να σας καλωσορίσει και να σας ευχαριστήσει που ήρθατε. Ελπίζει να περάσαμε καλά αυτές τις μέρες και στο επόμενο ταξίδι να συνεχίσουμε ότι έχουμε συμφωνήσει για τις αδελφοποίησεις.
Thank you. Commissioner Donovan, you want to comment?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Mayor, I want to thank you for your coordination. You do a lot for our Sister Cities program, and I'm excited for the future board to do the same. And I want to thank you all very much for being here. You've come a very long way. We truly, truly appreciate it, and looking forward to the partnership between our two cities to continue.
Okay, thank you. Next is ο επόμενος δήμαρχος του Tarpon Springs, ο κύριος Βατικιώρας. You understand that, so I don't have to explain it.
No, I understand that.
Yeah.
Thank you. I wanted to thank Mayor Limberis and his delegation for coming to Tarpon Springs.
Ευχαριστώ τον Δήμαρχο και την αποστολή που ήρθαν, την αντιπροσωπεία που ήρθαν στο Tarpon Springs.
I believe I met many new friends, very similar to my time in the Navy in Elefsina. It was a joy for you being here with us here in Tarpon Springs.
Ναι, ελπίζει. Can you tell me? I didn't understand.
It was my time in the Navy in Elefsina.
Ελευσίνα ήταν στην Ελευσίνα, ναι, και ελπίζει να πάμε μαζί εκεί.
And it was a joy to have you here.
Και ήταν πραγματικά μεγάλη του χαρά να μας έχει εδώ και καινούριο και make new friends, να έχει καινούριους φίλους.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll see each other again.
Και είμαι σίγουρος θα ξαναειδωθούμε.
The one thing that I think is important with our Sister Cities program is to exchange the stories of the sister cities that we have.
Ένα πάρα πολύ σημαντικό στο πρόγραμμα της αδελφοποίησης και των ενεργειών που θα κάνουμε είναι η ανταλλαγή της ιστορίας που έχουν οι δύο περιοχές. I think you mean about the Greeks, huh?
In our heritage, we have a heritage center that I think would be very important to have the story of Elida, Hania, Halki, Kalimnos, Simi, and one other. But it's very important to have.
Να έχουν τις γνώσεις και αυτή από την ιστορία από όλες τις περιοχές, ενώ ή από τις πόλεις που έχουν γίνει υπόλοιπες αδελφοποίησεις, όπως είναι η Αμαλιάδα, η Ήλιδα, τα Χανιά, η Χάλκη και οι άλλες πόλεις.
Kalimnos.
Okay.
It's Mir's Nisi.
And Kalimnos, of course.
Unless we share these stories, many of our residents aren't going to understand or remember what the importance of the Sister Cities program is.
Και μοιράζοντας όλες αυτές τις γνώσεις και από την ιστορία μας, θα ήταν πάρα πολύ χρήσιμο στο πρόγραμμα της αδελφοποίησης και ό,τι πρόκειται να γίνει στο μέλλον.
We see each other again not too far in the future.
Και ελπίζει να ξαναειδωθούμε πολύ σύντομα στο μέλλον.
Safe travels back to Greece. Thank you.
Καλό ταξίδι στην Ελλάδα.
Thank you. We are now going to the public comments. Τώρα θα έχουμε τους πολίτες να μιλήσουν σε αυτό το θέμα και I'd like to invite to the podium την πρώην δήμαρχος του Tarpon Springs, την κυρία Ανίτα Πρώτος. I'd like to invite the former mayor, Anita Protos, to speak about the program. Ήταν η κυρία η οποία άρχισε την αδελφοποίηση, το πρόγραμμα της αδελφοποίησης. She's the one who actually started the Sister City program here in Tarpon Springs.
I want to welcome you to Tarpon Springs. Sorry, my new phone went off. I don't know how to control it yet. But we're very proud of our Greek community. We're very proud of all the Greek families, what they've contributed to Tarpon Springs.
Mrs. Protos, would you stop so they can explain
Yes.
it, please?
We're very happy that and proud of our heritage here, and we do everything we can to make it stay so we don't lose it, because our children go off to college and they have careers and they don't always come back to Tarpon.
Είναι μεγάλη χαρά και τιμή για αυτή την αδελφοποίηση που έγινε εδώ και για όλα τα θέματα της ελληνικής κοινότητας. Είναι πάρα πολύ σημαντικό και για τα παιδιά τους, τα οποία μετά το σχολείο και το κολέγιο φεύγουν και από το Tarpon Springs. Είναι πάρα πολύ σημαντικό να υπάρχουν αυτές οι ενέργειες ώστε να μένουν τα παιδιά τους εδώ.
And when the Sister City program first started, you couldn't have all the islands, and because of the makeup of Tarpon Springs, but the sponge divers in the 12 Dodecanese Islands, Dr. Kathleen Monahan and I worked with it for 2 years. And the week that I left office, the last time of my term, they said we could have the 12 Dodecanese Islands, and that was an expansion of the Sister City program, very important because there's no other Greek representation in the United States like we have in Tarpon Springs.
Εννοεί, Δήμαρχε, ότι είναι πολλές οι αδελφοποιήσεις που έχουν γίνει με διάφορα ελληνικά νησιά στο πρόγραμμα της Επιτροπής Αδελφοποιήσεων του Tarpon Springs και είναι ίσως από τις λίγες πόλεις στις Ηνωμένες Πολιτείες που έχουν κάνει τόσες αδελφοποιήσεις με ελληνικές πόλεις.
So thank you for coming. Yasu, all of the Έλληνες that we have in the world in Tarpon Springs, and we're very proud to have you here. Thank you.
Είναι πολύ χαρούμενη που μας συνάντησε και πάρα πολύ σημαντικό που μας έχει εδώ για όλους τους Έλληνες.
Okay, thank you. We do we have any other comments? Any other public comments? That's only on the subject, please. Okay. Do we have any other comments? I hear none. Well, on behalf of the Board of Commissioners and the people of Tarpon Springs, again, I want to thank you for coming to Tarpon Springs. Εκ μέρους του Δημοτικού Συμβουλίου και των πολιτών του Tarpon Springs, θέλω να σας ευχαριστήσω που ήρθατε εδώ τόσο μακριά στο Tarpon Springs για να τελειοποιήσουμε την αδελφοποίηση και να αρχίσουμε αυτά τα προγράμματα τα οποία είχαμε πει. Επίσης, όπως είχαμε μοιραστεί αρκετές φορές, το Tarpon Springs μοιράζεται την ίδια κουλτούρα, τα ήθη και τα έθιμα τα οποία έχει η Μητέρα Ελλάδα, όπως είναι και θα συνεχίσουμε τα προγράμματα τα οποία είχαμε πει στην ανταλλαγή παιδείας, πολιτισμού και ανάπτυξης οικονομίας. Σας ευχαριστώ πολύ που ήρθατε. Κύριε Δήμαρχε, αν έχεις κάτι που θέλεις να προσθέσεις. Okay. That's all we have for the presentation, and now we're going to take about 10 minutes break, and we'll be back. Thank you very much.
That was interesting. Understood it all. Again, this is draft. That's a draft. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
How are you?
How are we? Yeah. Safe travels, sir. Thank you for being here. I think we have 2 weeks.
Thank you, sir. Nice seeing you.
Thank you for being here. Thank you.
Hey, Jacob. How are you? Good.
We are now reconvening the BOC meeting at 7:02 p.m. I'd like to remind to everyone that at 7:30 p.m., the public hearing portion of this meeting must start. Once the public hearing portion is completed, we will continue the meeting from where we left off. And now we're going to go to the public comments on the items that will not be discussed this evening. If anyone has any comments, please come to the podium, state your name and your address, and you'll be given 4 minutes.
Good evening. My name is David Ballard Geddes Jr. I live on Georgia Avenue in Palm Harbor down by Pop Stansel Park. The Declaration of Independence states that we warned the legislation of our British brethren not to extend their unwarranted jurisdiction over us. Oddly, the tax-free clause of the 14th Amendment, unwarranted birthing or naturalizing of water jurisdictions, applies to the Indians as being tax-free. Authoring the Declaration of Independence, the Declaration of Independence further describes these particular Indians as savages, as known savages, known for their absolute destruction of all ages and conditions, and that these Indians are working as mercenaries, transported here to complete perfidy and works of death. And the identity of these Indians is obscured and unsettled in their description as based on Federalist Paper number 42. The 14th Amendment birthing or naturalizing of water jurisdictions, as enumerated from Article 1, Section 2, elevates the British as having privileges and immunities. The Indians, tax-free, working as mercenaries, as declared, working for the British, under my speculation, are the 12 tribes of Israel as tax-free in the 14th Amendment. The Due Process Clause of taking liberty, property, and life while giving rise to such water jurisdictions is the unwarranted vanquishing of Christianity as based on Federalist Paper number 2, claimed as bounty in Section 4 of the 14th Amendment. The so-called perfect union of Great Britain and Israel, in my opinion, is a high seas act of biblical blasphemy, seen as a ship of war in Article 1, Section 10, here to capture the water supply in Article 1, Section 8. Such political behavior is seen as being multi-generationally propagated as of fact in George Washington's farewell address. Such multi-generationally bigoted, unwarranted constitutional powers, the 14th Amendment in its entirety shall be denounced. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments?
Wow, I don't know how to follow that, but we'll see if we can get back on track here a little bit. Peter Lackas, 514 Ashland Avenue. Welcome, Mayor and Board. It's good to see Mr. Terrapini again. We'll see him, I guess, a couple more times. And I would like to acknowledge that we had a safe, fair, and valid election. And that's because of our system that we must maintain so the voters can speak. So I was doing some thinking this weekend about how this election affects us. And I feel a number of us in the city, many residents, family, and friends, have felt many different things, and maybe this is a point of redemption, and I found this in Psalm 106. Praise the Lord. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His love endures forever. Who can proclaim the mighty acts of the Lord or fully declare his praise? Blessed are they who maintain justice and who constantly do what is right. Remember me, O Lord, when you show favor to your people. Come to my aid when you save them, that I may enjoy the prosperity of your chosen ones, that I may share in the joy of your nation and join your inheritance in giving praise. We have sinned, even as our fathers did. We have done wrong and acted wickedly. When our fathers were in Egypt, they gave no thought to your miracles. They did not remember your many kindnesses. And they rebelled by the sea, the Red Sea, yet he saved them for his name's sake, to make his mighty power known. He rebuked the Red Sea, and it dried up. He led them through the depths as through a desert, and he saved them from the hands of their foe. From the hand of the enemy he redeemed them, and the waters covered their adversaries. Not one of them survived. Then they believed his promises and sang his praise. So I would like to offer a thanks to the Lord for us having a very good and successful election. Now, what do we do with what's going on in Europe? I don't know about y'all, but I was sitting in the living room yesterday, looking out through the windows, bright sunny day. We were watching the race. Can you imagine all of a sudden a bomb just blowing up your house? And we're seeing this in real time, and we've gotten so immune to reality TV. It's like, I don't know. We're trying to send them arms and stuff, but does that stop evil? Does that stop evil? What do we do to stop evil? It's an age-old question, and I don't have the answer. But I pray every day that somehow we find a way to save these people, for they don't deserve this hatred that's being brought down upon them. May God bless them all and give us strength through this. Amen.
Any other public comments? Please come forward.
Good evening, Mike Eisner, 1515 Riverside Drive. Had a very interesting trip on Friday. As you all know, there was a recount, and the recount went in my favor. But one of the comments that Julie Marcus made that I want to share is that when you witness what goes on in an election, especially as we had in a national election, there are people that leave not knowing was it truthful or not. And she had sworn to us that when we leave, we're going to be diplomats and ambassadors for our Florida election system. And I could tell you from the bottom of my heart, and everybody in the room that was in there, from Madeira Beach, my opponent, myself, my wife, we all left as ambassadors of this system. It is the best system. It was honest. Everybody was forthwith in what they presented and why they presented, and we should all be very happy that we have a system as accurate and considerate as we have. So that's what I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anita Produce, 901 Bayshore Drive. This weekend, tarpon was shining. From Friday morning till Sunday night, our town was loaded with so many people walking our streets, going into our restaurants, going into the shops. Down at the docks, they were walking in the street because there were so many people couldn't get by on the sidewalks. It was glorious. We had a band concert down on the trail. We had the Greek Independence Day Parade. Saturday morning, there were programs going on in Tarpon. That's what we want Tarpon to be. It was wonderful. They can't say they weren't making money this weekend because people were eating, drinking at the breweries, walking around, ice cream all over the place from the creamery and other places. It was beautiful to see Tarpon Springs so vibrant this weekend, and I hope it stays that way. We're doing something right, Mayor, during your term to get all of this into Tarpon and with our commissioners. And it was just wonderful to see everything in Tarpon Springs like you see down county. We have become a city of enjoyment.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments? Do we have any other public comments? I hear none. We are now going to the consent agenda. Number 1 is the attorney fees. A, Trask and Dino, invoice March 3rd, 2022. B is Johnson & Johnson, invoice 9202. Number 2 is the special events. A, Good Friday Procession and Christ Rise. Number 3 is the award file number 220105 and AS single source purchase of lead station supervisory control and data acquisition system. And number 4 is the file number 220100 and AS single source purchase of HydroStop system components. Number 5 is the renew file number 190105 CJJ sodium hydroxide through the city of Boynton Beach, bid number 0152821 90 TT. And number 6 is the to authorize execution of license agreement with the Outrigger Performance Advantage Incorporated. Any items that you'd like to pull? Thank you. We go into the public comments on the items 1 through 6. Do we have any public comments?
Peter Delax, 514 Ashland Avenue, number 5. A couple meetings ago, I came up here and spoke to you about, I think it was sulfuric acid. Yeah, we're buying a whole bunch of to put in the water. Now this one is sodium hydroxide. Now background says municipal water treatment facilities use sodium hydroxide to control water pH and alkalinity, essential to the operation of the RO treatment plant, and the product is nationally certified as a drinking water. I've kind of paraphrased this. But if you look up sodium hydroxide, it's lye, it's caustic. They use it in manufacturing and all kinds of things. And here again, putting more poisons in our water where we need to be purifying it, not poisoning it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on the items 1 through 6?
Thank you, Mayor. Paniotis Kuyas, 595 Peninsula Avenue. I'd like to speak about special events, Good Friday Procession and Christ is Risen. It was a perfect opportunity today to see the ending of the twinning ceremony here with the island of Elida. And we talked about carrying culture and traditions. And I know you'll agree with me, Mayor, it's just the politics behind it are difficult. And I don't speak for the priests of St. Nicholas or the parish council. I'm coming to speak as an individual Orthodox Christian and many, many private Orthodox Christians who would like an Orthodox Easter celebration with fireworks. This year, we know it's out of the question. It's not enough time to get the permits or to have everything reviewed safety-wise, but we're looking forward towards next year We will follow the 4th of July permitting process to see if we can have something similar, whether it be Spring Bayou or on that one edge of Whitcomb Bayou where the fireworks can launch into the water, or worst comes to worst, Sunset Beach. And if the city did it right, they could work with the Chamber of Commerce as well as the Merchants Association to make it an event for everybody in Tarpon Springs and the Tampa Bay area. The Orthodox faithful know how to modernize. We'd like to bring back that tradition. We yearn for it, and I think you'll agree that in the future, if we can work together to bring this tradition back, it can be an economic opportunity for our city, as well as bring in tradition and keep the tradition growing as we have in the past. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments? Hear none. The chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve items 1 through 6.
Do we have any public comments on these items?
Second, if there wasn't a second.
Second. Do we have any public comments on these items?
Commissioner, comment?
Yes. No? A roll call, please.
Commissioner Vaticiotis?
Yes.
Commissioner Donovan?
Yes.
Commissioner Terrapini?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Carr?
Yes.
Mayor LaHousas?
Okay. Next is the public hearing, which it begins at 7:30. But Mr. Licouris, he wants to share with us the 2023 Community Project Funding Request. Mr. Licouris, you got the floor.
Yes, all of us saw this morning. I was a little surprised. Congressman Bilirakis sent us an alert on this program and that he was requesting the projects be submitted by April 5th, 2022. Obviously, with the meeting schedules and where we are, this is one that staff's going to have to go forward with. I'm sorry for the mix-up today about the state projects. We looked up this morning because the first thing we thought about was the state projects that we had submitted the two, and we wanted to check and make sure where they were. You saw the document that made it certainly look to anybody who can read that they didn't go through, but we found out later from Representative Sproul's office that they are still on the budget list, waiting the governor's approval. So where I told you earlier today that we were going to have those on the list, they're still up for, and we have to hope and campaign for the governor not to veto them. So they're still up. So what we did real fast together was just put a fast draft together of some of the other projects that we believed we could go forward with in this short period of time and be at a place where they could compete with all the other cities that the congressman represents. We looked at what got funded last time. It was a great variety of projects, whether they be water, I think there was fire station, other things in there. So we tried to come up with a variety of projects that we would have available and have enough information ready for to submit these. Ultimately, the congressman is going to look at all the projects submitted from us and the other cities and then pick a group of 10 to 15 to submit. So depending on what the other cities put in, it's good for us to have a variety of areas. For instance, if he needs a water project, we have a water project ready, and all the other areas. So we tried to put the fastest combination of what in a draft form. We'll certainly tighten it up, work on the language and do some other things, but I wanted to bring it to you tonight. And any suggestions of staff to look at anything going forward or ideas as we write these things and get them submitted by the congressman's deadline of April 5th. I was just looking for any input on these.
Okay. Mr. Licouris, thank you so much. All these projects are so important to us. I will suggest that you have to inform the new board and to have individual meetings with them and bring them up to speed with all those projects. So that way you can get their input. They're the ones who will be working with that as well. Okay? Vice Mayor?
Make it quick. Mark, I think these are all valid projects to work on. I think order would be the fire department, I would combine number 4 and 5 together as just flooding abatement projects instead of having them separated, so it'd be a larger number, around 700 or 800,000. And then the Cops and Kids Youth Center, I would even venture to say putting in the funding for the full rebuild of it, because you could drop in the Cops and Kids Youth Center along with the hurricane shelter, and I think that's something the federal government would be happy to support as well too, and that could help extend the ARPA funding further as well. With that, I appreciate your staff pulling this together at a short notice.
Okay, any comments?
Thanks, Mayor. I think combining the 3 and 4, or 4 and 5 is a good idea in terms of the flooding abatement. And then I think that the septic to sewer conversion from South Florida is important. And then I'd follow suit with the rest, starting with the fire station.
Commissioner Donovan?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Mark, is there like a project limit as far as us submitting 5 of them?
No.
You just think that that's like more reasonable as
Those are just 5 that we could, in a busy day in a short period of time, to go from this morning to tonight. That's just ones we were putting together and thought we had some information on. We'll do some more studying and looking at possibly some others, or any suggestions you have to look and see if we think we have the necessary information to meet what the congressman asks us to submit.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I like the variety of the projects. I think it would help us to submit even more, because if you don't ask, you don't get. When it comes to the Cops and Kids Youth Center, was there like an incentive to just doing the design and permitting as opposed to the whole thing?
That's probably the least of items that we've done preliminary work on. It was submitted for ARPA, and we haven't done a lot of preliminary work on, whereas the fire department and other things, we're way along in the process. So that was the thinking, that we may not have enough. We've got 2 sites we're just preliminarily looking at. So it's so early in the process. That was the thought of would we be able to go through, but we still haven't had a full discussion on that. So we'll have some more discussion and maybe have an and/or something with it.
Okay. Yeah, for the Cops and Kids, I would definitely ask for the whole thing. And if we want to, in the brief project description, we can just break it down further. If it's going to be $650 for the design and permitting, we can say that in the project description. Mm-hmm. But I would push to ask for as much as we can and see what happens. I mean, if they want to partially fund some of these, they partially fund some of them. But I don't think it hurts to ask for more than just 5.
I spoke briefly to the city manager before the meeting started. I actually went back and looked at our town hall meeting of February 15th, where the residents participated in establishing priorities. And a couple of these are high on the priorities with regard to the sewering and also the flooding. And the highest one actually was concerning the shoreline protection, seawall improvements, and living shorelines. And this past Fine Arts Festival weekend, 2 weeks ago actually, Saturday morning, the sidewalks were underwater, and also we wound up with seaweed up there for most of the day, that first day on Saturday. And it's really a sight to see the sidewalks underwater, with barricades telling people to stay off of them as well, because of some problems that we've got with needing to repair that. Given the fact that the residents identified that as the highest one that I've seen from the town hall meeting, and the fact that it's so visible, I think that we need to include the repair of those sidewalks and replacement of the seawall. And according to the city manager, this is due in 2 weeks. Is that correct? Can you confirm that for everybody?
Yes.
Yeah, so he feels confident that we could come up with a funding wedge for that, to provide that to Congressman Bilirakis' office as well. So I feel strongly that since this is something that the residents had actually highlighted as a top priority, and the fact that we're experiencing this, and we did experience it at one of the most busy events of the year, I just think it's something natural that we need to add to this list.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. Are there any public comments on this item? This is not on the agenda. It's just a report that it came from the city manager. Come to the podium, please.
Panagiotis Koulias, 595 Peninsula Avenue. I don't know where priority this would be, but I have spoken to a lot of residents who are interested in a community pool or a pool for the high school to be able to practice at sometime in the future. Thank you.
Sharon Landrum, 45 West MLK, Tarpon Springs. I knew nothing about this, but one thing that comes to my mind that is vitally important to our family here in Tarpon is we do not have a hurricane evacuation center to go to locally. So if there's any way that that could be addressed in this funding, that would be very comforting. I'm in AE. I have to evacuate, mandatory evacuations. It would be so comforting to know that I could stay local for a hurricane evacuation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Peter Lax, 514 Ashland Avenue. It'd be nice to have had a report out there so we could see everything that y'all talking about, but I do want to get to the one point that I've brought before, and I'll remind Commissioner Donovan, I'll take my disc back. And Paul, he can tell you right from his own mouth about the designs for a sports complex on the landfill. I drove by there today. It's just got a big, huge pile of mulch, and I understand you're going to be moving the weigh station and stuff. You want an economic driver? When y'all are back, give the disc to Paul, and maybe he can make copies for all of y'all. We already did the studies for the landfill. I think we spent like $500,000 all total for all of that. Beautiful design. You want an economic driver, you put out the ball fields and the things that are out there. There's even room to find a spot to put a pool right there. Right there. Now, I know there'll be logistics because you got the landfill underneath, but it's all potentially possible. Maybe a slight design. We already paid for it. Let's not go through the whole design consultants and all that stuff to redo it. An economic driver. You have tournaments, soccer tournaments, Little League baseball tournaments, football tournaments, rugby tournaments, lacrosse. You heard Ms. Fatalitas mention about lacrosse when she was here, right? Y'all remember that? Room for that. It's there. Just needs to be acted upon. Thank you.
Good evening again. Mike Eisner, 1515 Riverside Drive. I tend to agree with Commissioner Donovan. If you don't ask, you don't get. And as long as there's no limitation on it, I mean, I would go for all of these types of projects and see what we can come back with. I did read what they were, and I think we could use all of these corrected. So that's what I would do. I would ask for as many as you can do. I know it's a very short time frame from now for 2 weeks, but I just didn't understand something. I didn't understand when you asked about the next board deciding on it. We're not sworn in until the 12th, so this has to be done by the 5th. That was the only thing I didn't understand. Were you going to answer me? Or?
I will.
Okay.
When you finish, I will.
Sure. I just saw you make the motion that you wanted to answer me, so that's why I said it.
I will.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, back to us. Do we have any other public comments? I hear none. We do not use a consensus, so we have to have a motion.
To adopt the recommendations that we heard this evening. I'm not, before I make the motion, I need some clarification because I don't quite understand that we could be making recommendations or motions all night long and we're not going to get there. So first, we've got the recommendations by the city attorney, and I'm sorry, the city manager, and there aren't any objections that I heard, or there's perhaps some combining of that. And I'm not sure whether, my feeling is that this is something that the city manager and the staff need to decide, and obviously they put this together. And if the commissioners want to, some commissioners want to combine these, I'd like to understand some rationale for that. Secondly, I want to make it clear that everything that we are putting in here does not mean Congressman Bilirakis is picking. He's got 15 projects out of all of the ones that are being submitted from the cities in his jurisdiction. He's going to pick 15 out of everybody's. So, I mean, we can ask for anything we want, but we may not get what we think is the most important, I guess is what I'm getting at, because it's going to be up to him to make that selection. We're not prioritizing. Is that correct, City Manager? Of course, we're not prioritizing this. He's the priority.
Yes, you're correct.
So I also want to remind the commission that some time ago we talked about establishing priorities for the ARPA funds, and that we did that at the town hall meeting, and we're still working on that. So I keyed off that. And I understand that there's some projects that were brought up this evening, but I think that we need to have a little more clarification of what those should be. I mean, I heard from Commissioner Donovan, you would be interested in the instead of just the permitting and the design of the Cops and Kids Center for the whole thing. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. And then, if I remember right, that was a $5 million project that, at least that's the number I recall. Is that correct, City Manager LaCourse? I think maybe Chief Young had some thoughts on that.
I think it was a little less, but again, we're told to factor in maybe some hurricane proofing, so. What was the original price, Jeff? Was it $3 million?
$3 million, but after talking with Bob Robertson after the last commission meeting, he says you could double that, looking at a potential for a hurricane shelter. And then I'm trying to reach out to the Pinellas County Emergency Management and find out what their criteria is to actually have that considered for a shelter.
Well, I mean, I think we'll do that, but I remember the discussion on hurricane shelters. The reason we lost it is because there wasn't any area within Tarpon Springs that once the storm hits and it's flooded, there's no way that those storm shelters could be evacuated anyway.
That's correct. We would have to look at the surrounding area there. Will it become an island of itself? That's what happened out at the middle school. Right. And also having generator backup systems. So all those things would add to that cost. And again, we estimated for the building at a 5,000 square foot. I don't even know if that would be big enough to house a shelter. So we need to get their square footage per person to have a shelter and how many people they would looking for. So that $5 million estimate, $6 million estimate, excuse me, could be double that.
Yeah, more or less, or whatever. We're really not sure.
I think somebody always said, how much is it going to cost, and more.
Okay. Mr. LaCourse, do you think you could resolve that?
Commission, is that a motion that you're
What did I
making, or are
say?
you discussing it? You're making a motion, or you're discussing it?
No, but I mean, okay, well, I move to adopt the recommendations that the staff put forward and adopt Commissioner Donovan's recommendation of expanding the project concerning the Cops and Kids Center to encompass a hurricane shelter, given that it can be approved. I'm not sure what would happen if it's not approved, and there needs to be a funding wedge for that, so I assume that's going to be $5 or $6 million. Also, to add to this list, the repair and and elevate the sidewalks and seawalls around Craig Park. I don't know of anything else new that was brought up other than consolidating some of the projects. Am I missing something?
Well, what I recommend was to provide the information and to inform the new board to make sure that, because by us submitting the wish list, that doesn't mean that we're going to get it. I know over the years that you can request for 10 things, you're lucky if you get 1 or 2. But it is good for the new board to be on board with that. Not that they're going to make a decision on it because they're not going to take over till April the 12th, but they need to be informed because this thing is not going to finish in 2 weeks. This is an ongoing project that is going to take many years to come.
We kind of missed something last year in the same way that we didn't quite respond to the deadline in time. And I think if the decision could have waited until after April 12th, I think the city manager would have waited for that. Am I correct
I'm not
about
saying
that?
to wait. I'm not saying to wait, Commissioner. I'm just saying to inform and bring them up to
You're
speed with
stating
it.
why we can't wait.
No. What I said is, we can't wait because it's a day that we have to submit that.
I agree.
But what I'm requesting is for all the new commissioners to be informed about all these projects, to be on board with that. Not for the future.
Okay. Well, do you want me to repeat my motion?
I mean, I don't.
I have a question.
Do we need a motion for this in general?
Is it even
this
legal
isn't.
to make an official vote on this? It wasn't publicly advertised.
Yeah,
I mean,
this isn't on our agenda. I feel the same as you. I mean, we don't have the final price on Cops and Kids, although I do think we should go out for all of it. We don't have any price on the Craig Park seawall. We'd have to go back and look at that over the next couple of weeks. But overall, I mean, again, I think the rationale behind proposing as many projects as we can is that, you know, if the congressman is putting together this priority list, maybe one catches his eye, maybe one doesn't, maybe it's the 17th one that he likes. I mean, give him as many options as he can to prioritize on our behalf. But Mark, is this something that we need to formally vote on tonight? And is it something that we can, because it's not on the agenda?
Again, kind of how I started the conversation was there is no time to bring, this is something staff is going to have to handle based on, you know, what we've done so far. So what we will look at, those were, the 5 I gave you was some we looked at, thought we could do real fast. We were going to just listen for input, not listen for input tonight, and see if there are any other projects that we would have enough time and enough capability to put the proper information in it to apply for. I've got that feedback of some other things for us to look at, but this is kind of going to have to be, due to the timing, something staff has to handle. And I've heard all the recommendations here, and we'll look and see if we can present a presentable project that has a chance on the suggestions that's been made tonight by this board. So I didn't, but it was something that was going to go in commission, city manager comments. So I was just looking for some input for staff to put something together in this short time frame that we have between boards and between meetings.
So since it's staff-driven, you're comfortable with us not voting on anything?
Yes.
So that's my motion, Mayor.
Excuse me. Mr. City Attorney, with the new rules that we had, we stopped having a consensus. So we went to the motion. So
It all depends on what the city manager is asking of you. If he wants you to make a decision, it has to be by motion. If he wants just some direction from you and he's gathered that, you don't necessarily need a motion. So whatever the direction is the city manager is looking from you, you just can't do it by consensus any longer.
And either way either way the board wants to do it's fine. I just wasn't asking it for you to take a vote tonight. If that's what you want to do a motion, take a vote, then the city attorney says it's okay to do, then if that's the way this board wants to do it, that's fine also.
It's absolutely okay to go ahead and have the motion made, seconded, and voted upon. Absolutely.
I think it's going to be clean if we do it that way. That's the way we'll be doing it. Commissioner Vaticiores, would you repeat what your motion was? If you remember all those things that you said.
Right. To be specific,
Yeah.
to adopt the recommendations made by the city manager and staff concerning this matter this evening with the submission of projects to Congressman Bilirakis' office, with the addition of expanding the project concerning the Cops and Kids program to take into account construction, as well as perhaps accommodating a emergency shelter. And then the other project to add would be the seawall and sidewalk repair and elevation around Craig Park, time permitting, that an estimate can be created for that.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Terrapini, you had a comment to make?
It was clarified. Thank you.
Clarify. Any other comments? I would like, Mr. Licorice, I don't know if we need to include that into the motion, but I feel very strong that the new board needs to be informed with all those projects.
Well, I think you informed, I'll do what you want, but I don't know what input you want to add to this after you make a motion. I'll be glad to inform them, but I don't.
I mean, I'm not expecting for any input, but at least they need to be informed with those projects that we going to work on it.
Okay, because they're here.
Any other comments?
Roll call.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Vaticiotis?
Yes.
Commissioner Donovan?
Yes.
Commissioner Terrapini?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Carr?
Yes.
Mayor LaHousas?
Thank you. We now go into the public hearing. And item number 7 is next, Resolution 2022-060, application 22-26, North Lake Trails, the final plan development. City Attorney, if you please present the resolution.
Yes, this is Resolution 2022-06, a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the City of Tarpon Springs, Florida, approving application number 22-26, requesting final development plan approval for North Lake Trail Residential Plan Development located at the southeast corner of Mellon Street and North Jasmine Avenue, providing for certificate of currency, providing for conditions, and providing for an effective date. This is a quasi-judicial hearing, so I need to go ahead and read those procedures. This is a quasi-judicial proceeding where the Board of Commissioners acts in a quasi-judicial rather than a legislative capacity. At a quasi-judicial hearing, it is not the board's function to make law, but rather to apply law that has already been established. In a quasi-judicial hearing, the board is required by law to make findings of fact based upon the evidence presented at the hearing and apply those findings of fact to previously established criteria contained in the Code of Ordinances in order to make a legal decision regarding the application before it. The board may only consider evidence at this hearing that the law considers competent, substantial, and relevant to the issues. If the competent, substantial, and relevant evidence at the hearing demonstrates that the applicant has met the criteria established in the Code of Ordinances, then the board is required by law to find in favor of the applicant. By the same token, if the competent, substantial, and relevant evidence at the hearing demonstrate that the applicant has failed to meet the criteria established in the Code of Ordinances, then the board is required by law to find against the applicant. With that being said, I would ask if there are any ex parte communications or conflicts of interest that any of the commissioners need to address. No. I'm not seeing any. Okay. Anyone that's going to speak at this hearing, I need to go ahead and have you sworn in. If you could stand up, raise your right hand, and be sworn under oath. You swear the testimony you're about to give is going to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? All right. Thank you very much. Renee, would you like to make your presentation?
Thank you. Good evening, Renee Vincent, Planning and Zoning Director. This is application 22-26, the final plan development for North Lake Trails subdivision. The board did previously review this project as preliminary plan development and recommended approval. This is the project site at the corner of Jasmine and Mellon Street. The site contains about just under 4.5 acres. As I said, this is the final plan development. Associated with this, the preliminary plan development ordinance 21-26 was approved by the board, as well as 22-01 vacating the Cypress Street right-of-way. This is the final development plan. If you recall from the discussions, there was a lot of discussion about the ability to provide a sidewalk along Mellon Street. At this scale, it's a little difficult to see, but the applicant has provided for a sidewalk along Mellon Street as well as Jasmine Avenue, the crosswalk on Mellon, and then continuing the sidewalk up to make the connection to the sidewalk and the Pinellas Trail. Those were really the big things that were discussed at preliminary plan development. Our engineers did review this to make sure that there wouldn't be any adverse impacts on the stormwater facility located in the Mellon Street right-of-way, and that's been confirmed. The landscape plan really hasn't changed since preliminary plan development. You have the landscaping around the pond as well as the minimum planting requirements within the 18 lots. So that's consistent with preliminary plan development. Our review criteria for final plan development, it must be consistent with the comprehensive plan, and really that has been determined as part of the preliminary plan development. It has to be consistent with the preliminary plan, and it is. And it does demonstrate that facilities and services are available concurrent with the impacts of development. So the staff recommendation is to approve Resolution 22-6 with the following conditions. For roadways dedicated to the public, the plat shall include sufficient assurances providing for the property maintenance of the stormwater system components in the right-of-way in coordination with privately maintained components of the system. Such assurances shall be on the plat and/or in agreements prepared by the applicant to the satisfaction of the city. Individual home plans shall adhere to the dimensional standards approved with the preliminary plan development. The additional municipal easement documents, which are Exhibit C, and I'll step back and talk about that a little bit, must be executed prior to site construction permits being issued. And there's a small number of outstanding technical stormwater comments that do need to be resolved on the site prior to the site construction permit being issued. I do want to state we did receive revised plans, but our engineer of record hasn't had a chance to review those. And before we brought this forward, we did last week consult with the engineer of record, and he did confirm that the minor comments that needed to be addressed were just that. They were minor and could easily be addressed before site construction would take place. I do want to talk a little bit about the, if you recall, oops, sorry. So this was the Cypress Street right-of-way that was vacated. We do have the recorded, the executed easements to the benefit of the municipality for the portion of the right-of-way that is now owned by GGR or Pioneer Developers, and as well as we have the signed executed easement from the Rose Hill Cemetery. One of the conditions of approval regarding the additional easements necessary to cover this additional 20 feet that will allow access to the sports complex through that same route that we've been using for years. So those are drawn up, and we'll have to get those executed and recorded prior to issuing a site construction permit. So I just wanted to provide a little context for that. With that, I will stop and, sorry about that, answer any questions at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Any questions from the commission? Vice Mayor, we'll start with you.
Two questions. One pertains to public art. I had a question about that. I think you answered that in the email. Can you put that on the record, please?
Yes, there was a question regarding how the public art fee, what's the basis for the calculation? Specifically, do the individual homes themselves count toward the overall cost of construction? And they do not. So it's just the site construction permitting itself. And the reason being is in this current climate, we know that the lots aren't going to sit there, but as you've seen in past years, the lots could actually sit and be undeveloped for quite a long time. So for that reason, the lots are exempt.
Okay.
The homes are exempt.
Okay. From the total calculation?
Correct.
So, okay. Although it could be a $3 million project, I don't know what it's going to cost to build this. There's just the site plan itself was the development portion of it is what counts towards the public art calculation. Okay.
Correct.
And then I'm reading this correctly. It's 787 trees being removed, and then 95 are being replaced. I believe that's the numbers I'm reading here off the backup. Is there anything on that talks about like the quality of the trees, or can you elaborate a little bit further on?
And I'll may have to let the applicant provide a little more context to that, but my understanding from the arborist is that their arborist is still evaluating the health of all these trees. So, and our arborist has indicated that many of these probably will not actually be subject to the tree removal mitigation because of the health of the trees. So we don't have that information yet. So that's why we can't really give you a big picture number of what, how much, in terms of how much money the tree bank may expect.
Okay. And so that, I think we have an example of a nearby property. I don't think you were here when we did this, but it's the cemetery expansion. City manager probably has some memory of this, but there's a lot of trees in that. And I'm curious to hear about the applicant, what he has to say, but there's a lot of trees that were on that piece of property that had to be taken down, but a lot of them weren't. There were trees that were decaying or trees that weren't going to last much longer, so we really couldn't do a whole lot with it. So that's why there's only a handful of oak trees that are left on that piece of property. So we do have some type of comparison here within the same block. So that's interesting. I'm curious to learn a little bit more from the applicant about that total. So that's to be determined then, Renee?
Correct. And it's normally part of the site construction permitting process. They'll have to submit the formal tree removal application and have the full arborist report for the the health of the trees, and we'll get that final number then for the trees and inches being removed versus trees going back on, and you end up with that payment to the tree bank.
Okay, and then the city arborist reviews that from the building
Yes.
department too?
Yes.
Okay, great. I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Donovan?
Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. I just want to touch on number 6, and thank you for providing the backup on it and explain a little bit more as far as that road goes, that back road. I know in here it says it's for the purpose of park maintenance only for the city, and I understand that it wouldn't be part of this plan specifically, but does the city intend to still allow access to the nonprofit board members on that road?
I do not know the answer to that. I'm going to have to kind of look over your shoulder to the city manager and see if he knows anything about that or not. He's questioning the access to for others than the city's, city purposes to the sports complex.
Yeah, I don't know if we've looked or made a decision one way or another on that yet. I don't see why.
I mean, it was allowed in the past.
Yeah.
Now we have easements that do allow access, to the benefit of the city. So I mean, I think
I don't see that being an issue, but.
Okay. Yeah, again, I know it's not an issue with this. It's just I know we're establishing easements on it. It's existed for 20 plus years, and we never had any problems allowing board members access because that's right where the announcing stand, the storage sheds, the other fields. So that's something I hope that we can continue.
All right. I see Commissioner Vaticiotis. Yes, you have questions?
Two questions. You may have mentioned it, but I didn't pick up on it. We abandoned the crosswalk at the entrance. Is that correct?
We did.
Okay, and that's good. And then the other thing too, I'm hoping that as we've done in the past, we have a tree fund, and I would hope that if there's some really nice trees out there that need to be saved and put elsewhere,
Spade them and move them.
Yeah, let's use a tree spade to get them. City manager, of course, is that okay? Thank you.
Do we need add a condition, or we'll just do that? I think as part of our normal course of business.
Like we did with the car wash and
Yeah.
the other places.
Does he want to condition added to that?
Do you want to condition, city manager, or just?
It doesn't hurt to put it on.
I don't need it. I mean, but if you would be more comfortable with it.
No.
Okay.
Okay.
Fine. Thank you.
There being no other questions from the commission, Mr. Stamus, do you want to make any presentation to the city commission about this application? And I think there are some questions for you as well. Sir, if you'd state your name and your address.
Yeah, George Stamus, 46 West Lemon Street, Tarpon Springs, Florida. Yeah, I don't really have anything to add to the presentation, but I know there was a few questions, so I'd be happy to answer those.
Vice Mayor, you had a question?
Yeah, I just had a question. If you could elaborate a little bit further on the trees, on what the premise is, taking out 787 and the plan to replace 95. Are you expecting to have to pay into the tree bank at all, or what your thoughts were on that?
Yeah, I think the city has an ordinance that kind of dictates how that works. We have an arborist go out there and do a tree inventory of all the trees and rank the trees as far as their health and condition. And then trees that are in good condition or of condition where they're not diseased or dying or have some kind of flaw, those trees count towards the inches, and you subtract out the ones that we're planting, and we owe for the difference.
Okay.
So we'll be paying in the tree bank for sure.
Did you think about adding any more trees along the pond to buffer that a little bit?
We've worked with the arborist, the city arborist, and obviously we would rather plant trees where they're needed instead of just contributing to the bank. But we'll be working with Shannon, and if there's an opportunity to plant more trees for buffering or for enhancement of the pond area, we'd be doing that. What they asked us for was the code required tree planting plan, and that's what we submitted at this point.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions of Mr. Stamus from the commission? Any? Sir, thank you very much. Does anyone from the public like to speak on this application? If so, please step forward and make your presentation. You'll be given 4 minutes. You could state your name and address, please.
Thank you, Mr. Trask. Peter Lax, 514 Ashland Avenue. Thank you, Commissioner Carr. You brought up a couple of things that I had concerns about, but quickly to Commissioner Donovan, if you look at number 6, the second line from the bottom, the access shall not be utilized by the general public. That's in here. So unless you want to define a specific public, according to this, they won't have access. Now, number 5, we heard a little bit about public arts, and I have to beg to differ about Ms. Vincent's interpretation of what counts towards the costs. First off, $630,000 for the land. That's site acquisition. And we already figured it out that that comes out to about $35,000. Now, you think you could build a house for $50,000 these days with the way materials are cost? So 50 times 18, that's $900,000. So 900,000 and 630,000, that's 1.53 million, and that's not even permitting fees, engineers, the surveys, the arborists. So I have to beg to differ. The intent of the art ordinance when we passed it was that the project costs were over $1 million, not just some little part. So I'm a little concerned about that. Then also about the trees. On the beginning, y'all saw in the landscape plan a few little sections of trees here. And back in the section in the actual construction plans, it's kind of hard to read. Oak trees, pine trees, palm trees. 787 total, 787 removed. Now in the oak trees, you got a 34-incher, 28-incher, 26-incher, 2 at 25, 3 at 22, 1 at 21, 2 at 20, 1 at 19, 7 at 18, 8 at 17. These are sizable trees that have been there a long time. Now, some of them may be ill, but if they were properly maintained and pruned, they wouldn't need to be cut out. Same thing with the pine trees. There's one here, a 24-inch diameter pine tree. That's pretty big. There's 3 of those, 4 18-inchers, 15 17-inchers, 8 16-inchers, 9 15-inchers, 4 14-inchers, 12 13-inchers, 9 12-inchers, 2 11s, 6 10s. Pine trees. And palm trees, you got 2 at 22. Oh boy, it's hard to read it in this light. 1 at 19, 16, so you get the picture. This property is going to be denuded and leveled. There are animals and wildlife that lives. This may be not considered prime, but it's an ecosystem. So what's going to happen when all the bulldozers and the choppers start coming? You're going to start hearing from North Lake and Mr. Lindiakis, all the critters and snakes and possums and coons and whatever. Where are they all coming from? Where are they going? Well, you'll know why. I understand we need housing, and that's a dilemma we're having to deal with in many fashions, but wiping out a whole ecosystem for 18 families does not seem right. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public who'd like to talk about this application? Okay. So Renee, did you want to make any final closing statements followed by Mr. Stammes? No. No? Mr. Stammes, anything else? Okay. Mr. Mayor, it's back to the commission for consideration and approval.
Thank you. The chair will entertain a motion on this item.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Are there any commission comments on this item? No. Here none. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Vaticiotis?
Yes.
Commissioner Donovan?
Yes.
Commissioner Terrapini?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Carr?
Yes.
Mayor LaHousas?
Yes, thank you. Next is item number 8A and 8B. 8B is a quasi-judicial. These items will be discussed together. We're going to vote separately. So the item number 8A is the ordinance 2021-19, future land use. And this is the second reading. City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. This is ordinance 2021-19, an ordinance of the City of Tarpon Springs, Florida, amending the future land use map for 0.38 acres, more or less, of real property located at 1954 South Pinellas Avenue on the west side of South Pinellas Avenue, approximately 280 feet north of Klosterman Road, from Pinellas County, land use designation RL, residential low, and CG, commercial general, to City of Tarpon Springs, land use designation CN, commercial neighborhood. Application number 21-105, providing for findings and providing an effective date. That was the second final reading of ordinance 2021-19 by title only. The next ordinance we'll be handling is going to be quasi-judicial, so I'll go ahead and read those procedures now so they can be discussed together. This is a quasi-judicial proceeding where the Board of Commissioners acts in a quasi-judicial rather than a legislative capacity. At a quasi-judicial hearing, it's not the board's function to make law, but rather to apply law that has already been established. In a quasi-judicial hearing, the board is required by law to make findings of fact based upon the evidence presented at the hearing and apply those findings of fact to previously established criteria contained in the Code of Ordinances in order to make a legal decision regarding the application before it. The board may only consider evidence at the hearing that the law considers competent, substantial, and relevant to the issues. If the competent, substantial, and relevant evidence at the hearing demonstrates the applicant has met the criteria established in the Code of Ordinances, then the board is required by law to find in favor of the applicant. By the same token, if the competent, substantial, and relevant evidence at the hearing demonstrates that the applicant has failed to meet the criteria established in the Code of Ordinances, then the board is required by law to find against the applicant. With that being said, are there any ex parte communications or conflicts of interest that the commission need to disclose for tonight's hearing? I'm not seeing any. Okay, anyone that's going to speak on these applications, if you would stand up, raise your right hand, be sworn under oath. Renee, you're already sworn in. Anyone else that's going to speak on these applications? Okay, not seeing any. Renee, you want to make your presentation?
Thank you. This is application 21-105 for property at 1954 South Pinellas Avenue. Just for the benefit of the audience, this is the property. The board has previously taken action to annex the property from Pinellas County, and you've conducted first readings on a future land use map amendment, which amended the property from residential low in Pinellas County to and commercial general to the Tarpon Springs designation of commercial neighborhood and an associated rezoning from the Pinellas County designations of R4, which is a single family, 1, 2, and 3 family residential, and C2 general commercial and services, again, to the proposed neighborhood zoning of neighborhood business. So this property has split land use and zoning on it when it was annexed. And they're just trying to, as part of the annexation, now we're finally finalizing the land use and zoning to the City of Tarpon Springs designations. You can see the residential here and the commercial here. And so this puts it into one nice uniform commercial neighborhood land use category and the neighborhood business zoning. We have been waiting for quite a while now in order to get the countywide plan map amendment approved. Similarly, this had to go through the Countywide Planning Authority to update the countywide plan map. That was approved on March 8th and amended the property to retail and services on the future land use category. Retail and services future land use category in the countywide plan map. So this does allow us to move forward with second reading. So other than the countywide planning action, there's no other information to enter into the record, and staff recommendation is to approve the ordinances as presented for the future land use and the rezoning on this property. Thank you.
Any questions from the commission? Not seeing any. Thank you, Renee. Is the applicant here tonight? And would the applicant like to step forward? I don't see anybody standing up.
They're here.
So any final comments, Renee?
No.
Okay. Any public comments? I'll ask one more time. Any public comments on these applications? Okay. So, Mayor, it's back to the commission for consideration and approval.
Thank you. We need a motion for item number 8A, which is the application 2105, Northside Engineering, the ordinance 2021-19. This is for the future land use.
Motion to approve. This is ordinance 2021-19, future land use.
I need a second.
Second.
Are there any commission comments on this item? Here none. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Vaticiotis?
Yes.
Commissioner Donovan?
Yes.
Commissioner Terrapini?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Carr?
Yes.
Mayor LaHousas?
Next is the ordinance 2021-20 zoning.
Motion to approve
I
ordinance.
need to read that title first, if I can read the title.
Oh, sorry.
Costa, thank you. So this is ordinance 2021-20, an ordinance of the City of Tarpon Springs, Florida, amending the official zoning atlas of the City of Tarpon Springs for 0.38 acres, more or less, of real property located at 1954 South Pinellas Avenue on the west side of South Pinellas Avenue, approximately 280 feet north of Klosterman Road, from Pinellas County zoning designation R4, 1, 2, and 3 family residential, and C2, general commercial and services, to City of Tarpon Springs zoning designation NB, neighborhood business, application number 21-105, providing for findings and providing an effective date. That was the second final reading of ordinance 2021-20 by title only. Renee, did you have any further presentation that you wanted to make? No? Okay, so this is to the commission for consideration and approval.
Okay. Commissioner Vaticiotis, you want to make the motion now?
Yes, approve ordinance 2021-20 zoning.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions, any comments? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Vaticiotis?
Yes.
Commissioner Donovan?
Yes.
Commissioner Terrapini?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Carr?
Yes.
Mayor LaHousas?
Yes. Well, that concludes the regular session agenda. And we go to the staff comments. Police Chief?
No comments, sir.
Mr. Trask?
I just want to say congratulations to those who were elected into office, and we'll see you on April 12th, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Licouris, any comments?
No, you covered my item. Thank you.
Ms. Jacobs?
No comments, thank you.
Vice Mayor Carr?
Real quick, it's been an honor to serve with you all on this board, it being our last meeting. I know we have one more formal meeting to switch the guard, but it's been an honor serving with you all, and thank you for serving with serving residents. And congratulations to the newly elected.
Thank you. Commissioner Terrapini?
No comments, Mayor.
Commissioner Donovan?
No comments. Thank you, Mayor.
Commissioner Vaticiotis?
I have to admit, this is one of the more enjoyable weekends we had with not so much the Greek Independence Day parade, but the festivities that went along with that. Even after the Greek Independence Day parade yesterday and then the luncheon, there was a beautiful, although I missed it, a beautiful concert at St. Nicholas Greek Orthodox Church last night. Excellent reports on that. So I think it was just a fantastic weekend for Tarpon Springs, as was the Arts and Crafts Festival a week earlier, and just very proud to be a commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to congratulate the winners of the recent election for mayor and 3 commissioners. Congratulations to you all. I hope you do well and serve the people of Tarpon Springs and continue the progress. Congratulations. Well, that concludes the regular session meeting, and it's adjourned at 8:11 p.m.